Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome to today's reading from Srimad Bhagavatam. We're reading from Canto 4 at the moment. We're going to read from chapter 16, Prithu praised by the Bards. Prithu is praised by the royal poets who predict his glorious activities. Newly coronated King Prithu, dressed in regal attire, sat on a magnificent throne with Queen Archi by his side. On either side of them were the sages and chief ministers. Immediately before the throne stood the court Brahmins. The hall was packed with the city elders. Eager citizens had flocked there from the surrounding towns and villages. They overflowed onto the streets surrounding the palace. Everyone was excited to see their new king. Verse 1. The Brahmins beamed on hearing Prithu's gentle speech, such humility and wisdom. They looked over at the sages next to Prithu. Should they speak? The leading sage addressed Prithu. O king, your citizens are eager to know about you. These Brahmins are expert in astrology, and by virtue of this science, they know much about you and your future activities. To give joy to your citizens and on our request, kindly give them permission to share what they have seen in your horoscope. King Prithu bowed his head in submission. I cannot deny the request of great sages such as yourselves. The sages turned to the Brahmins and indicated they should continue. Verses 2 and 3. The Brahmins briefly conferred, and then one of them said, Dear king, it is clear from your horoscope that you are an empowered incarnation of Vishnu. It is by Vishnu's boundless mercy that you have descended to earth. We cannot fully describe your splendor. Although you appear from the sinful Vena's body, even great orators like Lord Brahma and other gods cannot adequately glorify you. Nevertheless, we derive transcendental pleasure from reciting your wonderful activities. We have also consulted with self-realized sages and with Vedic scholars. They have corroborated our findings. Whatever we say can never express the full extent of your magnificence, dear king, because you are Vishnu's empowered incarnation. All your activities are for everyone's good. A murmur of excitement ran through the people. Prithu bowed his head. Verses 4 to 6. Another Brahmin said, This great monarch Prithu is the best among pious people. As such, he will uphold religious principles by engaging his citizens in their respective duties and punishing the irreligious. By his personal prowess, he will maintain all living beings with their necessities. He will execute the functions of each of the gods and induce his citizens to perform many sacrifices. Thus, he will both provide for the comfort of the celestials who flourish on receiving our sacrifice and ensure there is sufficient rainfall to give the people ample harvests. Like the powerful sun god who distributes sunshine equally to all, King Prithu will similarly bestow mercy. Just as the sun evaporates water throughout the year and profusely returns it during the rainy season, Prithu will exact taxes from the people and duly return those funds in times of need. Verses 7 to 9. Another of the Brahmins said, This great king will be very kind to the citizens. If someone accidentally violates his rules, he will forgive and forget their transgression. In protecting the world, he will exhibit endless tolerance. The world will suffer a great drought, but King Prithu, as a manifestation of the Supreme Lord, will personally supply rain as he were the king, Indra, and alleviate the citizens' distress. By his smiling, affectionate glances and beautiful moon-like face, he will enhance everyone's peace of mind. Prithu's expression was grave. By his side, Queen Archi smiled encouragingly at the Brahmins, and another of them began to speak. Verses 10 to 11. Like the deep and mysterious ocean, the keys will be inscrutable. No one will understand. Harun is covered by water as fire springs from Arani wood. King Prithu sprang from Vena's dead body. He will be like fire when dealing with foes. Enemies will not dare approach him. Knowing him to be unconquerable, they will remain far away. The joyous citizens sent up a cheer. Verses 12 to 13, the Brahmin continued. The king will be completely detached from material affairs. However, he will know that every citizen is doing at home and at work. He will know what every citizen is doing at home and at work. But none will know from where he receives his intelligence. Like air, the life force of the body, he will be aware of everyone's private and public actions, but remain impartial in his dealings. If his enemy's son is innocent, he will not punish him, and if his own son is guilty of misconduct, he will immediately chastise him. Exclamations of delight were heard throughout the crowd. Verses 14 to 16, the Brahmin went on. King Prithu's influence will reach as far as the sun's rays for as long as he lives. Everyone will be satisfied by his policies and live contentedly under his protection. For this reason, the people will take delight in accepting him as their king. Truthful and determined, he will adore the Brahmins and serve his elders. He will show respect to all, fully protect those who accept his rule, and show mercy to the poor and helpless. Verses 17 and 18. Another Brahmin looked up toward the shrouded balconies from where ladies watched the proceedings. The king will respect all women as if they were his mother and show affection to his wife as if she were half his body. He will be just like an affectionate father to his citizens and an obedient servant to those who always glorify Lord Krishna. All creatures will be as dear to him as his own self, and he will give joy to his friends. He will keep company with saintly people and chastise the wicked. Verses 19 to 21. King Prithu is directly empowered by the Supreme Lord, the Master of the three worlds, the unchanging Super Soul. As a liberated soul learned in Vedas, he sees the spiritual equality of all beings and is never bewildered by ephemeral material differences. He is uniquely powerful and heroic and has no competitor. Like the sun which revolves around the entire earth, he will circle the globe on his victorious chariot, bearing his irresistible bow. At that time, all other monarchs and even the gods will pay him respects and offer him gifts. Their queens see him as the original king, the Supreme Lord himself, who carries the discus and club. Verses 22 to 23. In protecting the people, he will be like the powerful Prajapati gods to provide grains and vegetation for the citizens. He will level the hills just as Indra smashes mountains with his thunderbolt. He will thus produce a plentiful harvest from the earth as a cowherd brings forth milk from his cows. When Prithu, armed with his mighty bows, patrols his kingdom, criminals and thieves will hide like lesser animals hiding from a lion. The people cheered wildly, waving their scarves. Here was a compassionate and powerful king who would protect them from all troubles. Verses 24 to 27. When the assembly quietened, the last Brahmin spoke. This mighty king will perform 100 horses sacrifice at the source of the Saraswati river, but King Indra will steal the last horse. King Prithu will later meet the great sage Sanat Kumar in his palace garden and, after duly worshipping him, receive spiritual instructions that lead to transcendental bliss. Due to his uniquely powerful acts, people will glorify him everywhere. No one will be able to disobey him, establishing his authority throughout the world. He will end the people's suffering. Both the godly and sinful will recognize his great deeds. And this brings us to the end of the chapter 16. Prithu praised by the Bards. Next time we'll be reading from chapter 17. Thank you for joining. Hare Krishna.